Okay, I think we're on. Let's go. Sylvester Boyd Jr. is a native of Chicago, Illinois. At the age of 15, he and his family moved from Chicago's Southside public housing projects to Allegan, Michigan, where he later graduated in 1963 from Allegan High School. He attended African American mixed race and predominantly white school, typically living in diverse communities after receiving an associate in arts degree at Kennedy King College. He attended Chicago State University, acquiring a Bachelor of Arts degree in geography with a minor in history. He is an author, a motivational speaker, and he's also an actor. He's the author of the book The Road from Money. The Journey Continues. One review on Amazon says, and I quote, I enjoyed reading this book, and it gets even better as Estella's mother and sister moves north with her. I like the people in the story, and they are fun and interesting characters. Life and war changes things in the family, and all of that is a real part of the story. Today, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce to Let's Talk Purpose, Sylvester Boyd Jr. How are you today, sir?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am happy to have you here today.
Happy to be here, sir.
I've been reading a lot of reviews. I listened to some interviews that you did, and your book sounds very interesting. Compilation on history, and it also has some financial lessons for us today. Before we go into your book, could you tell me a bit about uh, your condition, your living condition? Today is, the 9th of November. How is America today?
America is right now is kind of recovering from the election of President Biden, President-elect Biden, and it's been quite an adventure. The election, the campaign, and we've had a lot of upheavals. I'm sure you probably heard of some of that. We've had a lot of racial tensions, and we've had a lot of things going with the current president. And the people have voted, and now we're kind of trying to adjust to the new president coming into office. Hopefully, the changes will be for the better. A lot of them were centered around racial justice, and hopefully that will come to the fore, and also economic justice. Also, hopefully that will be addressed, and also uh, justice in the court system, so we get more justice done over time. Hopefully, a lot of things that have been wrong will be corrected.
You are from Chicago, Illinois.
Correct. Chicago, Illinois. I'm right
Chicago,
downtown
Illinois.
on the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan is about 2 blocks from my house.
Okay. Um, Basically, I honestly have not been hearing good things about Chicago. Because I am in Trinidad and Tobago, but I have been hearing good things about that state. Well, that place, that state on the whole. In terms of crime and murders and that sort of thing. How is it right now where you are?
Well, we got crime and we got murder, that's for sure. But we also had Al Capone back in the Roaring Twenties. He was the chief gangster in the United States, and
Yeah, I know about that
there
story.
are situations that people usually look at the negative a lot of times. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful city, and that 10% that's crime we shouldn't judge the 90%. That's a great city, great people. I've lived here off and on all my life, with the exception of 5 years that I lived in Michigan. It's a great city. The people here are basically good people. It's very segregated. That's to the shame of the city. Like any city, if you go into any city in the United States, you'll find similar conditions. I've had the pleasure of traveling in your neck of the woods. I've been to a lot of places in the Caribbean: St. Thomas, St. Kitts, St. Croix, Barbados, a lot of places in your neck of the woods. I've been to all the way down to South America, Caracas, Venezuela. I visited that area. Aruba, not too far. I'm down in your neck of the woods. So I've traveled extensively through the world. Most of the Caribbean islands, I've seen a lot of them. St. Martin, most of your little islands out there. ABC, Curacao, Aruba. I've seen a lot of
Wow,
the Caribbean. Yeah.
you've been down here a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was just, as a matter of fact, I just before the pandemic hit, I was in Cuba, Havana, Cuba. I've traveled
Okay,
extensively. I've traveled extensively throughout the world.
that's good. I like that. I really like that. As we are talking about your traveling, tell me a bit about yourself, Sylvester. Who is
Okay.
Sylvester Boyd Jr.?
Okay. Well, basically, born here in Chicago, Cook County Hospital, Chicago, Illinois. I went to elementary school in a predominantly African American school. When I was about 12 years old, my folks moved from uh, one neighborhood to another. We moved to 22nd and State, which is Chinatown here in Chicago. And so I grew up in an area that was very diverse and multicultural: Asian, Puerto Rican, African American, some white, and I call it the little UN community. And then my folks moved, bought 40 acres of land in Michigan, and we moved there. My folks built a house, and my mother lived there till she passed away at the age of 89. And basically, that was predominantly all a white situation, where most of my classmates, I had about 5% African American, the rest were white. So I went to predominantly white. So I've had the experience of living in a predominantly all African American. I've lived in a mixed neighborhood, and I've also had the experience of living in a predominantly white community. Also,
So how does
also I don't know whether you read that, and I'm also a background actor. I have acted on what they call a movie extra, and I've acted with some of the biggest stars in Hollywood. I was on the TV series Empire. I was on also Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. I've been in movies with many of the major, Vivica A. Fox, and just a whole host of top name people who have won the Academy Award, Emmys, and Oscars. I've been on set with them, so that's been very interesting. Also, I also owned a business for 20 years. I actually owned the advertising specialty for 20 years. And that's, if you don't know what advertising specialties is, the sale of custom and printed items such as jackets, caps, bumper stickers, balloons. And I work with some major corporations. I was the owner of the company, and I had clients like McDonald's out of Oak Brook, Illinois. 7-Up at that time was located in Clayton, Missouri. I had the pleasure of doing business with Coors Beer out of Golden, Colorado, and Hershey. A number of major corporations were my clients, and political figures. I did yard signs for political figures, etc. So that was that business. And I also, on top of that profession, I also taught in the Chicago public schools as a teacher, a substitute teacher, for 5 years in the Chicago public school. I've traveled extensively throughout the world. I've been from Copenhagen, Denmark, Bergen, Norway, Aruba, St. Thomas, Belize, just Canada, Hawaii. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with the world geography. I was a
I'm not bored at all. Not bored at
I'm
all. I'm really very interested.
I also majored in geography and history. I'm a historian and have been able to. I'm 77 years old, so I'll give everybody my age. I've lived 77 years of life and found life to be challenging at times, but a wonderful place to be.
How has your background lay a foundation for you as an expert in history, geography, and race relations?
My background in history, I love history. I think most historians love history. It tells you what people have done, and geography tells you where they did it. History tells you when they did it. And I just mentioned travel. I just got back from Cuba not too long ago, Havana.
Yes.
And, I remember when I was in high school, there was the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs crisis here in the United States. And when I was in Havana, that because of my sense of history, knowing history, I could actually feel and touch it. It felt like I knew what was there before I got there. When I go to Denmark, I kind of know, a little bit of Danish history. And I'm also a military historian, so many of the great battlefields, like at the Civil War, I've actually visited a lot of the Civil War battlefields here. Also, get a chance to know what people have done. It's like the history of people, not just African Americans, but everybody. And it's like the world comes alive when you're history and geography. There's two subjects that a lot of people don't really get into for various reasons, but they really open the world to you. They open your eyes to the whole world. For example, the Atlantic trade slave, the Africans coming from Africa
Yes.
across. But many people don't know. If you go further back in history, Christopher Columbus was a late bloomer. There was Africans came from Africa and traded with people in the South American part of the world long before Columbus. History is totally uh, incorrect when it says Columbus discovered America. Europeans discovered America, not the land of America was here because the Native American tribes were here.
I
So to
believe
have
I believe Christopher Columbus never really entered America, the United
right,
States
he
of
landed in
America.
the Caribbean. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
Bahamas.
so that you know that, but many people don't know that, and so there's a lot of
Hmm.
misconcepts. History is full of omissions. Things that are not put in history is just as important as what is put into history, and who writes
So
the
so
history.
why do you all celebrate Columbus Day?
Me, I don't.
Well,
uh,
America,
Yeah, America
America. Why
discovered that. I remember in
why
seventh
why do they celebrate Columbus Day as an official day
grade.
when history is proving that Christopher never really landed over there?
Why do we do a lot of things? That goes to history's omissions, history. Who writes the book gets the chance to tell the story. Okay, the books that I write, I can tell the story of my characters the way I want to tell them. It doesn't always have to be totally truthful. My book is partly fiction, but it is also the way I saw it, and the characters do what I want them to do. Well, history books are the same. There's a lot of things that are not truthful in history books. There's a lot of things that are slanted in history books. There's a lot of things that are left out of history books. And to be truly, let's say, educated and to know history is to know where and how people actually did things. Because I always say there's only two things: truth and lies. Either something is truthful or it's untruthful, which is a lie. So that's sort of my concept of history. When I read it, I don't read one book. I read a lot of books. I want to know the facts, and The facts, if you search, you'll find the truth. But many times it's covered up by layers of lies. So we have to look at it that way. Uh, the world is a beautiful place. I've traveled it, and it's nothing like seeing being out on the ocean and seeing an island pop up. And knowing what it's. For example, I went by the island of Montserrat. Well, it's a volcanic island, and all the people got kind of had to leave the island due to the volcanic eruption we had not too long ago. So, I mean, that gives you history and geography. So when I go by that island on a cruise
Yeah.
ship, I look over and said, "Oh, that's Montserrat, and this is what happened on
Yeah.
Montserrat."
Mhm.
History is very interesting. Geography, they're twin sisters, one without the other. You leave a hole. Geography is where things happen. Montserrat is a Caribbean island. What happened
Yeah.
is history. The island is geography. So that you get that kind of thing. I also like to talk about the foods of the world. The cultures. I mean, most black people and brown people, especially African Americans and African, we all are related on the African diaspora. So it's not, some ships stopped when the Atlantic trade slave, when we had the Middle Passage, what they call the Middle Passage, that, some ships stopped in one island, some came all the way to the United States, some were in South America, and so therefore we are brothers and sisters, but we have been scattered because of factors in history.
When you make mention of America's history, especially when you were speaking about Christopher Columbus, um, how do we address the misconception, or as you say, the lies, the layers of lies? How do we address it? Because I like to, I would like to seek truth. I like to hear truth. I don't like to be fooled, and I believe going through the school system. I mean, you've been fooled. You've been fooled a lot of lies because it's in your book. This is your booklet. This is what you read. And I'm reading, this is what happened. And then now I'm reading other literature and I'm realizing that that cannot be totally true. How do you, as a historian, feel about addressing the misconception for the next generation to get a more clear truth of what really happened?
Okay, I've also been an educator. So I've been
Yes.
in the school system. I mentioned that I was a substitute teacher. And that's where it starts. The books have to be factual. We have to know what the truths are and put the truth into the book. Then the next
Hmm.
generations will learn the truth. If if I feed you a mistruth, you will learn that
Hmm.
mistruth, and you will take that mistruth for a truth. But if I give you a
Hmm.
book and it has facts in it, then you will know the facts. I think it all starts with education. I think it also starts with being frank. White society has to learn not to give so many myths. We put ourselves in a position where I had a course in school called The Omissions of History and the images
Yeah.
in history, the images. So when you look at a motion picture, most times you see a white man as a savior, the smartest, the best. That is not true. That is not true. When just for example, let's take the word all American. That applies mostly time in America to some football player that was great. Not to say there's not white football players that are great,
Hmm.
but that term does not most time apply to a person of dark color. But I know Jesse Owens, I know Muhammad Ali, I know Simone
Hmm.
Biles, and it goes on and on. Willie Mays, we can go on and on and on. So we're just as great an athlete as anyone else. So we should also be
Yeah.
included in a category. That's the type of thing that we need to correct because that gives a false image two ways. The false image to white society that they're greater than dark society, and dark society that they're lesser than white society. I was raised in a household that my mother always said there's no one greater than you, and you're not greater than anyone else. And that's the way my life has guided me through my life. Not thinking I'm better than anyone, but never letting anyone look down upon me. Uh, uh, we only get a certain amount of time on this earth, and we all do the same things. We all born, we all live, we all die. And so and no one has ever not died, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
that's here has to be born. We all eat and we all sleep. So we all do the same things. So we only separated by concepts in our head. And mixed concepts in your head can take you down the wrong path. Not for you're thinking that you're better than someone or that you're lesser than someone. Those are misconcepts. Truth is truth, and it will always be truth. And lies are lies, and it will always be lies.
What do you feel is the impact of racism on men of color?
Tremendous. It's a tremendous impact. We were brought, like I think I alluded to that earlier, in slave ships, in something that was called the Middle Passage, in abominable conditions, and we were, for one reason, labor, free labor. We were picked up on the shores of Africa, the motherland, brought across the ocean, and deposited in various locations in what they call the New World to pick cotton, to do the manual labor, and so by doing so, we made a lot of people rich. Down in the Caribbean, I go sometimes. I've traveled the Caribbean, and there was rum and sugar cane in the Caribbean. In the south of the
Yes.
U.S., there was cotton to be picked. Cotton was king and made many, many, many millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, in the southern U.S., the whole economy was based on slave labor. So
Yeah.
in the Caribbean, there was sugar cane to be cut. And so the slaves did the hard work while the people who owned the plantation actually benefited from their labor. They got very little benefit from their labor, and they worked in hard conditions, harsh, very harsh conditions, and many of them died from just the conditions that they were uh, uh, exposed to. So that's true history. I'm not here to make anyone feel good. I'm here to make people see what it is. If I say I got $1 million, I'm a billionaire tomorrow. Does that make me a billionaire? No. So you have to go by facts. Facts count. Facts do matter. And I think in the United States recently, that's where we've had a lot of problems. People have made lies out of whole cloth, out of nothing. They just tell plain lies, and then they act upon those lies if though they were true. Uh, that will always lead you down the wrong path. Right now, we in America have just had a choice recently to go down the road of being a dictatorship or go down the road of being a democracy. We always have had a lot of hypocrisy in our democracy. There's all men are created equal, endowed by their creators with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal, but you got slaves. That don't work. That don't work. If I'm equal, then you shouldn't be able to buy me. You shouldn't be able. We should be equal, and only the way I get ahead of you is by the things that I know and the things my character should take me maybe ahead of you. But as far as you being owning me, that should have never happened. And now we're trying to erase a history, a legacy of what was shouldn't have been done in the first place. And look at that, was like 400 years ago. I believe we came around the year 1619. So that's been a long time. And look at all of the lives that have been affected by an untruth, by greed. Greed is another thing. Greed, you want to make the money from the slave labor, but you don't want to pay the slave for what they did. And he shouldn't be a slave, or she shouldn't be a slave in the first place.
Have you ever seen the movie Harriet Tubman?
Yes, I have.
Do you agree that most of the movie is factual as
Yeah,
a as a man of history?
to a large degree, yeah. The South of the United States was not a good place for a black man to be.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day, we have a legacy of the Civil War in the South. To this day, still has that fact that they were they held on to slaves and we owned you, and now how could you be equal to me? That's
Mm-hmm.
a problem that white society will have to correct. I always say a lot of the world's problems will be corrected when white men and women look in the mirror and see the pain they have caused others. It won't correct them, and we can't do it for them. We can't do that for them. They have to look and get the moral fiber to do that for themselves. And we're going to have a problem until that is done because it's a matter of respect. For you to get respect, you have to give respect. You want me to respect you while you disrespect me? That does not work in my book. So for black men, we're looking for the respect that we deserve as human beings. For black women, we're looking for the respect we deserve as human beings. For Mexicans, we're looking for the same thing. Everybody wants respect. Nobody wants to be disrespected. And we've set up a society that's built up a lot, sometimes, on disrespect of other people that don't look like us.
What are the steps in making a plan for success for men of
Uh,
color?
a plan for success, number one, know what you want to do. Know what you want to do. If I don't know what I want to do, then I can't do it. As simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
If a ship goes sailing and it does not have a port of call, it just stays on the ocean. It doesn't have a port. It doesn't
Yeah.
have a destination. A plane, when it takes off, must have a destination. Human beings must do the same. You should know what you want to do. Then once you know what you want to do, now what tools will be required? I want to be a carpenter. I'm going to have to certain tools that I'm going to require for my trade. For me to do my job, I'll have to be a person that knows how to root a slide ruler or how to use a computer, know geometry. I'll have to know a lot of things to do that. So once you know what you want to
Yeah.
do, then you can make a plan to do it, to get the education that's sufficient to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you do that, you make a plan. The next step is to make a plan. How will I go about doing this? Will I need other people? I want to start a business. Do I have enough capital to start a business? I was a business owner. I was a business owner for 20 years. So you have to say, okay, this is what I want to do. I need the capital. Now, there's several ways of raising capital. You can have other people invest in it, but the more people you have invest in it, the less control you have of it. You can be an entrepreneur and own the whole thing outright, but then you don't have maybe the income that because other people bring other money, so you have to think about it that way. So that's part of knowing a plan. You don't just set out to do something; you have to do it in an orderly fashion. If you ever want to open a business, you have to finance that business. Then you have to be able to persevere. You're going to have problems. There's no doubt about it. Most times no one goes through, but unless you're fortunate enough to have a rich uncle, or you have to have
Mm-hmm.
hit the lottery, maybe.
Yeah.
You may have plenty of fun, but most of us have to raise the capital. So these are the things that you want to take a look at. You have to persevere through problems. Okay, well, I don't have enough money. Should I go to work and get a job and set aside some of that money? How do I do something that will cause me to have a little bit extra income that I can set aside to start that business? Or can I talk to a group, a social club I belong to, and have all the members in that club invest in my business? Those are the things to think about. And then the problem, you're going to have, like I said, you're going to have problems. There's always going to be setbacks in life. Life is like the ocean. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. Life is like the land. You got valleys and you have mountains. It's simple. Life is pretty simple when you get the rhythm of life. We're in a world with a rhythm. It has ups and downs. You have rainy days and you have sunny days. There's a rhythm, and when you buck the rhythm, you find that that creates a lot of problems. Uh, our environment is because we buck the rhythm. We do things to the environment that we shouldn't do. We throw trash in the oceans. Well, sooner or later, that causes problems for the fish in the environment within the ocean. So everything has a rhythm, and we have to fit into nature's rhythm. Nature called the shot. We have right now a pandemic going on. Nature called the shots. It's worldwide. Thousands upon thousands of people are
Yeah.
dying every day. That's nature. And now we have to get a vaccine. But we, in the meantime, need to do the things we have to do to stay as healthy as possible in the face of the pandemic. So nature is always stronger than man, but sometimes man thinks that he's the boss, and nature sometimes shows that who's the real boss. Now, the bottom line too there is that here we go with the pandemic, but there's some good that comes out of things like this. You have to be able to read the world. Hey, guess what? We don't have as many cars and polluting the air right now because people are not traveling. And we're not dumping stuff in the oceans because we're not on the oceans as much. So there's good in that. We're learning to get along with each other, and the things that have been wrong are now being highlighted because of the pandemic. We'll be glad to touch and hug and embrace each other soon. But we weren't before. It was we were too busy to talk to our kids. We were too busy doing this. We were too busy doing that. Now all of a sudden we have plenty of time. Well, that's nature, and she's talking to you strongly. These are the things that I see, the rhythm of the world. And believe me, I enjoy my life. If I die tomorrow, life wouldn't owe me anything. And I think that's the greatest thing that people can say. I'm not looking back, and when I look back, I see the people that I have helped along the way. And I see the students that I taught. So when I look back, I see family members that I've given a boost to. I see the country that I've contributed to. So that's the way you want to live your life. We're only here for a short time, folks. It's a journey. It's not something. This is not
Mhm.
permanent.
Yeah.
This is a short journey through life. It can be longer for some people, but 100 years is still short. We That's kind of the top of our expectation to live. So what do you do with that? Like I said, we are born, then we got a chance to do things, and then we die. So what we do with that time in between birth and death is very important.
Let's talk about your book series. As you are alluding to what are the steps that a man should take in being successful, especially a man of color. The road from money. How the no, first of all, why did you write that book?
Okay, number one, you may not know. I'm not saying you don't know, but you may not know money. Why would I say the road from money? Money is a town. Money, Mississippi, is located in the delta of Mississippi, the Mississippi River Delta.
Mhm.
Uh, Emmett Till, a young boy of 14, was killed in 1955. They said he whistled at a white woman, and he was mutilated and thrown in the Tallahatchie River. Those are real facts. My book is sort of fictional, but it's based on fact. My folks are from that town. My mother, my aunt, my
Yes.
grandmother all came from Money, Mississippi. Money, Mississippi was the start of the civil rights movement before Martin Luther King. It was before Martin Luther King, 1955. Everything came
Yes.
after that. Okay, so it's a very historical place. And I heard all my life. Never been to Money, Mississippi. I have never been to Money, Mississippi. But my grandmother, my mother, my aunt, they all talked about it. And the story at that time had no
Why
idea.
not?
I never had no idea that. I would write a book about it. I was a kid, and I listened to my grandmother. I loved my grandmother, and she would tell, because she could trace her family, all of my great great grandfather, to slavery. So I'm connected to history. I know my connections to the history. A lot of people don't. They're very disconnected from what family member did what and where did they come from. But I know clearly where my folks came from. I know they told me about the train ride from down south to up north. My aunt came here in 1937. The book is based on her life, Estella Clemens.
Estella,
So
yes.
she went from to the cotton fields of Mississippi to a millionaire. When she died, she was a millionaire. That's a long journey, and I thought I ought to tell that story. No one else in the family was writing, and I never written before. Now I think I'll always write. But that was a story that, to go from picking cotton in the hot sun all day to being a millionaire. She traveled the
Yes.
world. My love of travel came from her. She traveled the world. When she was 79 years old, almost as old as I am now, she went to Vietnam and Southeast Asia, Singapore, Manila, and she traveled quite extensively. And I got a love of travel from her. She never had kids, so she adopted me and one of my cousins as sort of her children. And she, by being very well situated in the middle class, she was able to expose me to culture such as plays and music and things that a lot of people don't have the money to do, frankly. And so I was very fortunate. In one room in her house, I had an electric train in the 1950s that took a whole room. And
Mm-hmm.
and to me, the world was a great place. But as I grew older, I started to see the difference between the people who have and the people who don't have. The courses I took in school showed me that. I lived through the 1968 Democratic Convention, the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I actually lived the history, and I started to see the pain that lack of money, lack of good working condition, the lack of many things that human beings should have. uh, I started to see the difference between the haves basically and the have-nots, and
Yeah.
that's important. That the people who have should always understand the have-nots, but unless you live a life of the have-nots, sometimes you don't realize what that life may entail. That basically is a thing that I learned as I got older, because I was exposed to a middle class lifestyle in America. I wasn't poor, but I wasn't rich either. But we had enough. I've never missed a meal. I've traveled. I've done a lot of things because of what my ancestors did, not because of what I did. And we got to learn that. I stand on the shoulder of giants. I love being black. If I died tomorrow, I would come back as a black man because I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what my people have accomplished. With 2 feet on the neck, they have accomplished tremendous. We built the White House. We invented the
Mm-hmm.
potato. We invented the potato chip. We're the heavyweight champions of the world. We're the Tuskegee Airmen who never lost an airplane, a bomber that they escorted. They got shot down, but their job was to get the bombers across Europe in World War II and get them home safely. And boy, did they do it! Never losing one. That brings tears to my eyes and a pride in my people. Blood plasma was printed by my people. And when I say my people, I say it with a sense of pride. I love my people. I love myself. I try to love my country, wrong or right. They make it difficult sometimes. But you got to look at how did you get to where you are? And I sure didn't get here by myself. It was my aunt picking that cotton that I wrote a book about. My grandmother, whose father was a slave. And so I'm connected. A tree grows by the root. I'm connected by the root. Many of us are drifting and we don't feel the connection between other people. We all stand on the shoulders of the people before us. It's like a chain, and the chain, if it's broken, you won't be here. Somebody on a slave
Yeah.
ship, someone on a slave ship survived. Do you know what happened on the slave ship? If you couldn't drink salt water and couldn't tolerate it, you died and they threw you over to the sharks. So
Mm.
someone on that slave ship was, some man, some woman was tough enough to take it and make it. And so my problems are few compared to theirs. So this is the way I look at life. I think a pride in yourself, you can't go wrong. Life usually, people know when you have a pride in yourself. When you don't have a pride in yourself, it shows. It may not be obvious to other people, but you know whether you have a pride in yourself. I love being who I am. My grandma used to say, God didn't make no junk, boy. And that I came up with that. So no one, when I look at somebody, they walk in the room, I don't care. And I have been fortunate enough to meet the people I've met. I didn't go down that trail. Muhammad Ali, I had a hot dog with him because I worked for American Airlines for 12 years. I was the third crew chief that they had, black crew chief, in charge of loading aircraft at O'Hare Field. Third. So, back because I came up in the 60s. This was in 1960, a long time ago. So in a way, I've blazed some trails. I met people. I work with people. I'm in the movies. If someone had told me when I was in fifth grade that my life would unfold like it has, I would tell them they were crazy, absolutely crazy. But that is because not so much who I am, it's the people before me, the seeds that they planted. My grandmother used to always say, if you plant a crooked seed, you'll get a crooked tree which will bear crooked fruit. So she said, don't
Yeah.
plant no crooked seeds. So I think those little things like that, uh, when you plant those kinds of things in children's heads, that is where we can get to who we are and what we are and where we want to go.
You mentioned that you stood upon the shoulders of giants. Who are some of the people that you would say have inspired you to where you
Oh,
are right now?
oh, well, my mother, my naturally my close relatives, but people like Jesse Owens in 1936. Knowing history, we're going back to my
Hmm.
history again. In 1936, Adolf Hitler had an Olympics in Berlin, and
Hmm.
he was about the pure Aryan race, pure white men being superior. Well, Jesse Owens just showed him a thing or two, and he came out of there with all kind of medals, and he beat the best that they had, and stood on the stand, and the Star Spangled Banner played. That's one of my heroes. Uh, it's just so many of them. Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth was great, but we had a black man that broke the record. Jackie Robinson. I mean, it's just so.
Yeah.
Going through history. Oh man, I love my history. Like I said, a potato chip was invented by a guy named Mr. Crumb.
Hmm.
The stoplight. When you come to a stoplight, traffic light, black man
Yes.
invented that. When you uh, get hurt and injured, blood plasma might be needed. A black man did it.
Yeah.
That. A black man also did the first open heart surgery in Providence Hospital here in Chicago. Oh, it goes on and on. I got heroes for days. My people are great people, and if
Yeah.
I could just get young black men to see that how great you are one of nature's best specimens. Paul Robeson, who was an athlete, a singer, an actor, go on and on and on. But see, that's what history has given me. That's knowing my history. I can take the characters and put them out there, and I know what they did, when they did it, and how they did it. And if we could just inspire young people to do the same, a lot of this would go away. And then you have to look at the other side of the coin. When you deprive me of my history, when you write history wrong, you also deprive yourself. White people deprive themselves of true history. Because history is not a lie. Either it was or it wasn't. It never tells a lie. Either you did something or you didn't do something. So when you teach false history, you teach false history to also the white the Caucasians. They learn history wrong because you have to know true history to know what history is. False history, if you teach it, then everybody gets false history. So we got to think about it that way. It's not just a one thing. You can just deprive me of something, but you also are depriving yourselves and your children of the same thing.
The history comparison between America and the Caribbean is somewhat similar, but it's somewhat different in terms of the um, perceived, oppression of the black people in America. The difference is Trinidad and most of the Caribbean, we are not majority white. We are black people, black ruling, the countries being independent, being republic for a number of years, since the 60s, as in Trinidad case. But in America, it's quite different with with the racism and the race wars amongst blacks and whites. I I cannot put my mind around it because when I look at racism in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, it mainly could center around Syrian Lebanese community, the probably the racial war between the African and the East Indian population. But I I cannot understand what the blacks in America would have been through. Although slavery was abolished for so long, still in America, it's it continued. In the South, they continued. Africans were basically part of property. They were the property of slave owners.
Correct.
And that happened long after slavery was abolished. Hence the Civil War. We never had that war. Slavery was abolished, and then black people had, we had to start to make men's for ourselves. We had to work, and we had to build themselves in the Caribbean. I'm speaking about the Caribbean, and then, basically they educated themselves. They became prime ministers. They became the rulers of their own country. It's not so in America. In America, we just about 12 years ago, after all these years, you had your first black president, right?
Correct.
Right,
Obama, who
right.
I was fortunate
Obama,
enough to
yes.
meet. I actually met him. Uh, America.
Actually, he's from Illinois.
He's
He
from
was a senator
Chicago.
for there.
Yeah, as a matter of
Yes.
fact, his office was just a little ways down the street from where when he first got to be president or president elect. He had an office there in the federal building. Uh,
Hmm.
no, America is two houses in one. It's
Hmm.
like the white European structure, the structure that rules everything basically, and then you have everybody else here in America. Minorities have not been treated justly. Our police are not here to serve and protect blacks and brown people. They seem to be more interested in protecting property and white people. That's just the way it is. The police in America came from the slave patrols, the people who used to go out and catch runaway slaves and bring them back. That's
Right.
historical fact.
Yeah.
See, so
Oh,
you,
same thing in Trinidad. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is here is that we will have to keep fighting, and this is 419, that's a long time ago, until today. Every inch of ground that white people have I believe, and this is just my personal belief, a fear of dark. They have a fear of dark skinned people. They run away from dark skinned people, if though we were a disease or a plague. And they don't
But
sit. Yes,
Sylvester, you were saying it's 400 years ago.
correct.
400 years ago, that was the end of what? That slavery in America, right?
No, no. America's only been here for 244 years, if my history calculations are right. But
Uh-huh.
it's never been just the Indians whose property they took at the barrel of a gun were here. So when just it's not just African Americans. During World War II, the Asians who they thought might be friendly to the Japanese Empire, they rounded up American citizens and put them in what they call internment camps. Okay, the Mexicans, they fought a war to take the land from the Mexicans. So basically, America was taken at the barrel of a gun. Okay, as a country, that's the way it was done. And then to not acknowledge that, to not to acknowledge other people's pain that you have caused, that's uh, that's where we are. We keep white people deny that they've done these unjust things, or they don't want to look at them. And until they look at them, you can't correct it. It's like having cancer and keep saying, I don't have cancer. Until you look at the cancer and get it out, it will always be there. And that's what America has been doing for 244 years, and ever since it's been America, because they started with the Indians and didn't start with black people as much as it did the Native Americans, the people who were on this land when Columbus, quote, quote, supposedly found it. So facts are facts, and facts are painful sometimes. They're, you
So
know,
what would you say about the people that says, it's time for Black Americans to move on?
yeah, I would say that that's true to a degree. We want to move on. We want to move on in a country that treats everybody equally. Don't get. I'm not. I don't think everybody's asking for a handout, but don't keep a hand on me to keep me back either. And so far, that's what America's been. Because I think white men fear black men because it's a threat to their power base. That's the bottom line. America has been ruled by white men for 244 years. We've only had one president of another color. Now we have a vice president to be, which is a female. Other countries around the world have long passed that. They've gone past that years. Women have been prime ministers and presidents of countries. Margaret Thatcher, she was in England. She was the prime minister of England. So what's wrong with us?
Gandhi in India.
Gandhi and dear Gandhi, yeah, yes. I
Yeah,
mean, it goes on. Golden My Year in Israel, I can name them. So what's
yeah.
wrong with us? There's some deep-seated fear of black people in America. The white man brought us here for free labor, and now he's afraid of us. So that's what it kind of boils down to a degree. The only thing,
Mhm.
instead of living with us, he has to have a gun to keep us in what he would figure was the proper places. That won't hold up forever. Hopefully, it's coming to an end now. And then the other thing, the world is getting darker. It is getting more brown. It is getting more black. He is becoming suddenly a minority on the face of the earth, not the majority. And now you have to think.
Speaking about the majority and the minority, um, why why is it that the black population in America is still the a minority population? I would believe that um, black people reproduce a lot. They literally coming back from Africa where there are great tribes of people. Why is it in America that the population of Black Americans are so low? I was surprised to hear that it was only about 13 to 15% of the population in America.
Well,
Why do
here,
you think that is happening?
well, here's another thing. Who counts?
Hmm.
That's your question. Who counts people? Who
Uh-huh.
gives the census? If I
Right.
am afraid of you, will I tell you your strength? No.
Hmm.
I think we're more like 20 to 25%. Then you throw in Asians and you throw in Mexicans and you throw in Puerto Ricans, and we're pretty much the majority of the country. But he's not going to give you true figures. Those figures are lives. I'm 77 years old, and we've been, 10 or 20% forever in a day. White people are having less children. We're having more. I don't believe the figures. Okay.
Okay.
That's the figure he
Okay, I
gets. There goes
understand.
another lie. You got to watch
Uh-huh.
your lies. The lies are out there. And you have to be
Mm-hmm.
smart enough to see around the lies
Mm-hmm.
because they're there. In the census, I never believed the figures they would take it at face value. I'm not saying that we're the majority, but I'm not saying we're as a big a minority as they're saying we are. So, and then when you put all the minorities together, then we're a majority.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. So that goes back to the lies and truth again.
I mean, when you look at slavery, and I'm coming to an end of the discussion, you know, the countries most active in the transatlantic slave trade. I'm seeing here some statistics. Over 3 million, almost 4 million went to Portugal. A little over 3 million went to the UK. That's slaves. Oh, 1.3 million went to France. 500,000, a little over, went to Spain. 377,000, as it was written here, went to the United States. Denmark had 103,000. Okay. Um, Albeit it was basically treacherous and it was basically brutal. And it's only 155 years ago when state sanctioned slavery ended in America. Do you do you think that the slaves in America got a better deal in terms of being landed in America? Seeing that America now, I mean, it wasn't then, but America now is like a superpower, a land of opportunities, where a lot of people from the Caribbean would like to flock to America to get an opportunity. I mean, albeit the brutality of what happened, do you think that the slaves that landed there are better off for landing there, or they would have been better off in Africa?
Uh, that question I've had to ask before. Uh, to me, there's sort of a two-sided script. Materially, material wealth, America's great. Uh, I have car. I can travel anywhere I want to go. I have a nice house, an apartment. Uh, but as far as morally, America's bankrupt. It doesn't have a lot of real morals. They cleave to guns and destroying and death. So America, as far as I know, for the last ever since it's been a country, there's only been about 16 or 17 years that we weren't at war with someone. We're a very warlike country. Vietnam, you just go on and on, World War II, there's just war after war after war after war. Now we're fighting in Afghanistan. Some wars start out okay. We don't know how to go home. We go to a war, we just love it. We stay. We got troops all over the world. What country has troops based in America? Okay, when you think about it, worldwide, what country has troops based in America? Not too many. No country has troops based, but we have troops based all over the world in other people's countries. So that's another paradox that I look at America. I think materialistically, you're better off if you happen. Not all of us, because we got people sleeping in the streets in America too. People who
Yes, yes.
so it's not like you came to America and you're lucky and everybody's got a big house and a car and no, it don't work that way. That's not true. More people, I'll say more African Americans, people from Africa, were able to achieve some of the American dream, but not because they were in America. They just landed on these shores, and when slavery was over, everything went okay. And no, you said you just got through saying you have a prime minister. The islands have prime ministers. The people in the Caribbean islands have their own self-government. Okay, we don't. Blacks here fight for every inch of ground that they get. As far as every right that they got, someone tried to snatch it back. In America right now, they said, well, the vote is the big thing, that we should be all Americans to be able to vote. But now they're talking about voter suppression. How say voter suppression when the whole country is based on vote? That's your freedom. So there's things that happen here that I'm sure doesn't happen in Trinidad or Aruba or Thomas or St. Martin or the Bahamas. There's things that happen here in America that's totally different. The whites are very oppressive here. You got your freedom to some degree, more than we do, to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah, I've traveled. I know. I mean, I've been there. It's not like I'm saying something about Trinidad or Aruba, and I've never been to Aruba. St. Kitts. I've been to St. Kitts. I mean, so I've traveled enough of the world to see how the world is. But here's the other thing. I think, man, it's not just black and white. If you go to some of the countries in Europe, they have their own problems. Everybody could be as white as you want to be, but in Ireland, you got the Catholics against the Protestants. Okay, everybody's white. So now we got to have some. There's always got to be conflict. Man is built that way, I think. Hopefully, sometimes we'll get rid of some of this, but sometimes I think it's just built into the nature of who we are.
I love this. I love this interview. You have opened my eyes a lot of history, a lot of education. I'm so grateful for sharing a perspective on Black America that you lived, and now you could tell through your book. This great novel, as you said, it's a story basically based on your aunt. Because the information that I get is information that's online on books, but you are sharing life lessons as a black man growing up from a well privileged place to seeing life on the whole, how it is to have and what goes on with the people that doesn't, the have nots. He's the author of the book The Road from Money, The Journey Continues, is based on Estella's mother and sister moved north from the south. He is Sylvester Boyd Jr. He's a great storyteller. He's a great man of history. Tell us, where can we find you online?
You can go to Boyd Books. If you want to purchase the book, you can go to
Yes.
boydbooks.net. That's Boyd, BOYD, BOOKS, books.net. And you can look me up on the internet at sylvesterboyd.com. Sylvesterboyd.com. You can go to my website. A lot of my backgrounds there, a lot of facts of things I've done, and maybe we didn't get a chance to cover tonight, are located on my website. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to another program right after this one. I got another podcast that I'm going to be interviewing in a little bit here. So I'm always interested to give away knowledge. Knowledge won't do me any good in the grave. Knowledge is to be left with the generations that come after you, and that's the way I was treated. And I hope that by me living, the world will be a better place than I found it.
This has been a revelation on education. It has been life changing for me. I definitely would like to speak with you again. Definitely, I have to speak with you again. This has been very interesting. I really enjoyed it. Thank you again. I appreciate you taking the time to have this interview with me and to share with my audience here. I look forward to speaking with you again, and I wish you all the success in this book, this great book that you have. And definitely, we will do this very soon again.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and the same to you. Success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have a blessed night.
Thank you.